Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today for this closing session, and of course joining us for the entire 2 days, or I'm hoping most of you did. This has been a great 2 days. So we're wrapping up now our third public MCBK meeting, our first online public MCBK meeting. I think it went really well, and looking forward to sort of this wrap-up session, and then also a very informal social hour in the next hour on Zoom, and you've got the links to that in the meeting. As I'm sharing some summary remarks, I just want to draw everyone's attention to a poll. We'd love to take a couple of polls just to get a pulse on who's here and what you're feeling. So let me go ahead and tee up the first poll. You'll see it to your right of the video, and it should pop up, and go ahead and fill that out and hit submit. And first poll question is, where do you think mobilized computable biomedical knowledge will make the most impact? So if you could go ahead and answer that while I prepare or share just a few remarks. So we had 195 people join yesterday. More than 100 today stayed and participated in the 4 work groups. Is tremendous. We are thrilled. I got a chance to pop into the different work groups and spend some time, and it was really exciting to see some new faces in there and hear some really stimulating discussion. We had 26 poster presentations, and thank you for all of those, for all of you who presented a poster. I do apologize again for the few of you that weren't able to do that before the session closed. What we'd like to offer, and we will send an announcement, is a post MCBK poster social hour one afternoon/evening next week. We'll schedule that as soon as possible in coordination with those poster presenters and announce that to the entire meeting registration. So I hope you'll join and hear a little bit more about MCBK in action and hear from the people that joined this meeting today. Again, some wonderful speakers, and I will pass the baton in a moment to my colleagues to comment on that more in depth. But clearly, based on the wonderful panels and presentations and messages today that we heard from our work groups and volunteers, there's a lot of energy here, and there's a lot of potential here. We're still finding our scope and our stakeholders, our story and our direction, but clearly there's something here based on all the content we've heard today. There's lots of big picture stuff to work out, defining our community and moving forward, but also a lot of details, which it just made for a really invigorating, stimulating discussion. So I thank all of our presenters and contributors to the meeting today for making that work well for us. I have a couple more announcements, and then I'm going to submit or post another poll. So please do go ahead and finish poll 1 if you haven't already. Next steps, just brief announcements. We will post the recordings from this meeting. Any notes and artifacts from the working groups will be posted on the website, mobilizecbk.org. Let's see what else will be there. Patty Brennan responded to the questions in the keynote session yesterday. And so we have written questions and responses from her that she's agreed to let us post. So you will see those on our webpage very soon. And let's see, I encourage you to check the webpage, sign up for working groups, reach out, identify new activities, bring them to our attention. Please do keep in touch and continue to stay engaged with MCBK. And then we will also follow up with the MCBK poster session for that date, the supplementary poster session, which will be fun next, as soon as we can. It'll be sometime next week. I want to post one more poll question. This is, which aspects of MCBK are most important to ensure that CBK can be applied safely and at scale? There should be some choices there. So you should see that poll in your, it should pop up to the right of the video on your screen. So if you could go ahead and fill that out while I pass the baton now to Chuck, who will share a few words and then introduce our final speaker today.
Thank you. So I really appreciate everybody's participation today. I think we've had an enormously successful meeting. As Rachel said, we had close to 200 participants yesterday and well over 100 today. I counted about 110 who were participating across our 4 work group breakouts. And I too visited several of, or all 4 of the work group breakouts, and experienced for myself the energy and creativity that was going into those discussions. My job is to thank everybody, and just because I'm the one who's thanking, I want to be sure that these thanks emanate not only from me, but from Rachel, and I'm sure from all of you who attended the meeting, because a lot of hard work has gone into putting this virtual meeting together. So first of all, and this is in no particular order, thanks to our friends and supporters at Russell Video, who technically made this meeting possible. The team was led by Mike Pincinalt, and they were all in the background. There was more than Mike working on this, but they did an extraordinary job, among other things, recovering from an internet failure. And those of us who have been involved in technical activities before appreciated the way they recovered very gracefully from that, and we were restored very quickly. I of course want to thank all our speakers, and they are too many to thank, but all of our speakers were excellent, and I know that their presentations were well received. I want to thank our steering committee. Their names were shown a little bit earlier today. They included our 8 MCBK work group co-chairs. Everyone here, everyone named there, is volunteering their time and being very generous with their time. It is a lot of work to co-chair an MCBK work group. And on top of that, the co-chairs participated in the steering committee meetings. We cannot thank them enough for their work and their dedication. I want to thank our panel moderators at the meeting, Peter Emby, who's a member of our steering committee, and Peter Boisvert and Josh Rubin, who also moderated panels. And Peter did a remarkable job with the work with the lightning session for the posters. And they are both members of our Michigan internal team supporting MCBK. I want to thank our facilitators for our work group and interactive poster session breakouts, Lisa Ferguson, Brooke Raths, and Joan Ferraro, who are also members of our team. And I want to thank our meeting coordination team, the people who worked to really put this meeting together. And these include Michelle Williams. Michelle has worked night and day, and I mean that literally, for the past several weeks. And before that, to put this meeting together, Janelle Burley has handled many administrative aspects of the meeting, and Helen Pan has helped in a large number of ways, doing everything that needed to be done to make the meeting work. So thanks to everybody, and I always say this when I call out people by name. I almost always leave somebody out inadvertently, and if I've left you out inadvertently, please forgive me. So now let me turn to introduce our final speaker for the meeting today, Doug Van Howling, a colleague for many years. Doug is a emeritus professor at the University of Michigan, currently working part-time in the Department of Learning Health Sciences, and is our guru, leading us in several initiatives that the department is pursuing, and giving stellar advice to MCBK. I won't read Doug's lengthy background and experience. I just want to mention that Doug was present and presided at the birth of the internet He made substantive and seminal contributions to the creation of the internet. He's a member of the Internet Hall of Fame. And shortly after the internet was born, he recognized the need for a digital communication resource that furnished a higher quality of service than what the commodity internet would provide. And that set in train a set of activities that led to an organization and a functioning network called Internet 2. Doug was the founding CEO of Internet 2 and guided that organization successfully for many, many years. So Doug has done a lot of the things that we are trying to do in MCBK in a closely related domain of digital technology. Doug has in the past offered very informative and illuminating comments on meetings such as the one we've had. He did this last year, and we now turn to Doug Van Howling for some closing observations. Doug, thank you so much for doing this. We very much appreciate it.
I'm delighted to be with you today. I'm especially, it's been a special privilege for me to be part of this community. And it's also been exceptional for a guy who sort of spent his time worrying about digital infrastructure to think about this much broader challenge in health. This has been an exceptional meeting at an exceptional time. I don't need to tell any of you that the time is exceptional, but the fact is that we find ourselves not together physically. We find ourselves essentially operating globally by this infrastructure. I have to confess, I was a little embarrassed that this thing that I helped build sort of broke yesterday. But, you know, these things happen from time to time. I'm going to be interested in hearing the backstory about what actually broke. But at any rate, this meeting has been exceptional partly because it's a global meeting. You know, we had people participating from China and South America and of course Europe. And the fact is, as I'll say, that our challenge is not a local one, it's a global one. But perhaps more important than the geographic spread was the stunning span of perspectives. You know, libraries, the research community, the infrastructure community, stakeholders. I don't know about you, but that stakeholder presentation, I think, provided a whole new kind of perspective for me. The posters, the breadth of those posters and the coverage they provided, and then of course these very active volunteers in our work groups that keep moving us forward. And all of this reinforced the robustness of this movement that Chuck talked about at the beginning. And it challenged us to ask, at least me, how we should respond to the opportunities we see in front of us, the challenges that those opportunities involve, and frankly, our responsibilities in this environment. I recall for you our manifesto, the very first part of it. Knowledge has the potential to improve healthcare, the health of individuals and the health of populations. Every decision affecting health should be informed by the best available knowledge. For moral and ethical reasons, it is imperative that each and every member of society have access to what is known at the time they are making health-related choices and decisions. Now, think about that, the audacity of what we're talking about. We're not just talking about healthcare, we're talking about health. We're not thinking about just individuals. We're thinking about populations, families, organizations, communities, nations. And we're not thinking about just some of the people in our families or our nations. We're thinking about everyone. We're not thinking just about the people who provide care. We're not thinking about just the people who are able to pay to receive care. We're not talking just about care. We're talking about the common man in the street whose health is vital to him, and perhaps as important, as we've learned in this COVID world, the health of that common man in the street is critical to all of our health. We're not just talking about some knowledge. We're talking about all of the relevant knowledge. And I think one of the things that is implied but isn't spilled out in detail is we're not talking about getting this knowledge later. We're talking about it now, when we need to make the decision. It's truly an audacious manifesto. I think you would all agree. And so when you think about that manifesto and where we are today, you're immediately drawn, as I assume all of you were when you responded to these polls, to think about the gaps, the things that need to be accomplished if we're actually going to begin to respond to the audacity of that manifesto. As was said yesterday, a lot of people around the world don't even recognize that there is such a thing as computable biomedical health and how it's relevant to them, although they use digital tools all the time. There's a lot of incumbents that are involved in this space, governments, private companies, organizations like ours. We have not come together in a way that provides unequivocal support for mobilizing CBK. And we're not cohesive. We are all over the map. Frankly, to do anything outside of just the care part of MCBK, we don't have robust funding. And we certainly don't have the kind of infrastructure that's required. In fact, part of the challenge with the infrastructure is that there's technology that still needs to be invented. So what should our role be as MCBK? We're already convening the community, although we could certainly convene the community more deeply and further by adding subsidiary technical conferences. We are not yet convening the community globally. And it's even questionable whether we should. I'll get to that in a moment. And as I said, we don't yet have recognition of the role that CBK can play. So what should we be doing to promote the notion of CBK? Communicating about it, advocating it, trying to generate political support. And of course, we need to think about how this infrastructure is going to be built. The fact is that the important parts of this infrastructure will be built by organizations that are able to profit from its availability. But our experience with the internet showed that, in fact, there is common structure that needs to be globally invested in that goes beyond the infrastructure that any individual organization is going to build. We are working on the standards. There are some demonstration applications, but we don't yet really have any kind of global notion of the repositories and any consensus on what's required as a global infrastructure to undergird computable biomedical health. And finally, should we provide leadership or just facilitation for this movement? It's a global movement. If we're going to do this, we have to think about what our global relationship should be. One of the things we discovered in the internet was that you needed a global coalition of nation-based organizations to accomplish the objectives. Who are the partners that we need to engage, and what kind of incentives should we provide, should we think about? And if we're going to be thinking about facilitating a movement or leading that movement, on what parts of this effort should we be focused? So in the final analysis, as we think about this, I thought the results from the polls that you provided were extraordinarily interesting. With regard to where MCBK can make the most impact, you overwhelmingly said that health delivery is most important and that public health was second. Although a number of you said that health professions education and research had to be included because you said all of the above. I would suggest to you that it may be that if we think about health, that public health really needs to be ranked somewhat higher in that set of preferences. And then what can we do to ensure that CBK can be applied safely and at scale? The overwhelming response here was standards, which speaks to this fact that we need organizations that can do the things that we all need done, but none of us can do alone. But of course, you mentioned technical infrastructure, policy, and getting the stakeholders engaged. I know that we are going to be thinking hard in the steering committee about how to respond to the challenge and the opportunities that you've presented to us. And I'm looking very much forward to continuing to be engaged with this activity and our movement going forward. Thank you very much for this opportunity to chat with you.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. You've both challenged us and in ways that we need to be challenged, but you've also inspired us. And that's a powerful combination. We know what we need to do, but I think your remarks left us much more motivated to go and do it. And if I have to put my own interpretation on top of yours, and I think this is very harmonious with what you said, I think we leave this meeting with a sense of direction that we didn't have with nearly the same precision as we have now. So what we, as you pointed out, have to do is difficult and challenging, but I now see vectors, I now see pathways that are more specific and than they were before, and which carry a promise of bringing about change. So thank you, Doug. This was extremely helpful, and I know I speak for all of the participants in saying that. This brings us almost to a close. Rachel, would you like to add some final comments before we close the meeting?
Well, I think you summed it up well, Chuck. I just really want to thank all our speakers and participants and everybody for having faith in this as we are still feeling our way around. And Doug, your comments especially sort of gave me hope and direction as well. So I very much enjoyed that, and thank you for helping to close out this meeting today. As I mentioned before, we're going to follow up with the meeting materials on the website, and so you've not heard the last from MCBK, and we do thank you for your engagement and hope we can continue to keep you engaged in this movement. Now we'll move to the social hour, or actually I would like to adjourn the meeting, but remind people to get to the social hour. There is a link on the screen. If you're in full screen, you might not see it, but it's right at the top of the meeting website, and it says Zoom social hour. So we will close down this meeting and say goodbye and take a 2-minute stretch and go into the more casual session. For anybody that wants to just share some of their feedback, reflections, just relax, just say, hey, that would be nice. And we'll look forward to seeing you at future MCBK events to be determined and announced. I think that's it, Chuck. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you. And goodbye. And thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your day.
Bye-bye.